reconnaissance. So stay where you are, okay, and stay healthy.
Yeah. That's a good book, guys. By the way, I'll post the Amazon link for you
Yeah,
guys
that's
to check
that's
it
it.
out. It's a very good book. Um, let's see here. And now you mentioned y'all are y'all now at Da Nang for a
We're at
while?
Da Nang now. Yeah, we got shipped up to Da Nang because they they were reorganizing the division. So let's see, I had 2 patrols down at Chulai, and I had 2 more patrols up in Da Nang. The first one was fairly uneventful. The second one was where we were slated to go into a place called Antenna Valley, which
Oh,
was about 15 Ks west of Da Nang, fairly close to the Laotian border, as you pointed out a moment ago. And that's where we got our asses handed to us. The thing was that our platoon commander, as I told you, had gotten killed about a month before, and we were left in the hands of this staff sergeant who used to be a DI at San Diego, but he was not an infantry DI. This guy had come from another MOS, and I don't remember what it was, but it wasn't infantry. It could have been artillery or something. What the hell he was doing in recon is beyond me. Recon straightened that out after I left. They made sure that your MOS, when you were connected with the unit, was exactly what recon was looking for. But in the early days, they were pretty much taking guys who volunteered to go, because there weren't many of us who did volunteer for it. So they were taking people who might not necessarily have that kind of combat training. Hence this guy from the MPs and this fella from, I think it was artillery, which is ironic because he got us lost the first day we were out in the bush. And he decides that he's going to call for a spotter round from a 175. You can't call a spotter round from 175. So those things are so inaccurate. They're notoriously inaccurate, as you well know. You can fire a round in on a grid square, a 6-digit grid coordinate. You can call for the same round on the same grid square, and it'll be 1,000 meters off. They were used for random shelling. They weren't used for precision shelling, but it was the only battery that we had available at the time. And this guy had no idea where he was, even though we were telling him. He calls this 175 in, and it hits down. It splashes about probably 2,000 yards away, and we could see it. But he says he wants a confirmation. So battery fires another 175. We hear this thing coming in. It sounded like a freight train on steroids. It was the loudest, most unnerving, beastly sound you can ever imagine. It's just this incredibly loud whine as it's coming in, and it's coming in right at us. We're on this hilltop, and this thing, just before it splashed, the radio operator says, "Okay, shot," from the battery. And we say, "Roger, shot out." I was a radio operator. And he says, "Splash," which means this thing's going to hit. And as he says splash, we hear it coming in. It came, if you imagine the hilltop like this, the round came in just over the hilltop like that. It couldn't have missed the top of us by more than about 30 feet and landed at the bottom of the ravine. So it literally came in on our heads. If we'd been on flat land, we'd have been killed because this thing would have hit so close to us. You know, I mean, you know what the size of a 175 is. It's huge. It'll destroy anything within. Those things would destroy anything within about 500 yards. But it just came over the top of us and hit this hill, hit right on the hillside, threw up all kinds of debris and stuff all over us. It took our breath away. It was so close, it took our breath away. And he figured, yeah, okay, I know where we are now. All right, moron that he was. And that was only one example. We knew we were going to have trouble on that patrol. We knew it was going to be a bad scene because before we got inserted, we loaded at our ready pad in Da Nang, and we flew out in these old 34s. And you know what they look like, these big teardrops. They're old Korean War vintage ships. As we were coming in to our LZ, you could see the NVA and main force VC. These were not regular VC. The main force VC were trained as well as NVA were. In fact, a lot of the main force worked with NVA units. They were that good. They were pouring out of the tree lines and firing at us. We went in with five, I think we went in with 5 choppers plus gunships. And there must have been 100, 150 of these NVA that poured out of this tree line and were firing at us from the ground. We were up at about maybe 500 feet. And all you saw were these, they used green tracer. We used red, they used green. Going right past our doors, through the blades of the chopper. And that's what we were, that's the valley we were landing in, where they saw us coming in. So this guy had picked a very poor insert point anyway. And then we landed and we started getting sniped at immediately. We got sniped at for 2 or 3 days until we landed on that hilltop. And then after 2 days up there, this guy, the staff sergeant, decides, well, let's go down to our extract point. But hey, I got an idea. Let's use the same trail we did going down that we used coming up. That's a good idea. We had NCOs who said, Staff Sergeant, this is insane. You can't leave a position the same way you came in. You just can't do that. We've got to find another way. Oh, look at you, man. You've done your, look at that. You are a research specialist, aren't you?
Oh.
Yeah, that's right. There you go. There's Elephant Valley. Yep. And Happy Valley. That was a horrible place. Yeah. So we were we were actually very close to Happy Valley. It was a valley, sort of one valley over. And you can see there's a main route that runs through there. And that's what we were designed to do. We're trying to, pick up infiltration routes. So we come down the same way we went up, and they were waiting for us. There were probably maybe a reinforced platoon, I'd say maybe 30 or 40 that were sitting in an L-shaped ambush. We walked right by them. They were very good at this sort of thing, and they caught us in crossfire, and they did us a number. They did us a number. And that's when I got hit so badly.
And I mean, it's on this one. It's not just you. Is this the one where Mr. Porter's paralyzed?
Yeah. Yeah, he got hit by a spent round, which is I'm sure you well know that. It's a round that sort of goes up in the air and comes down without all of the force behind it, all of the sort of muzzle velocity behind it. I mean, so an AK round leaves at about, what is that, about 2,900 feet? Is that about right? Does that sound about right to you? Muzzle velocity on that, something like that. This thing probably hit him at maybe 700 or 800 feet per second, which hit him square in the throat and exited right past his neck. And he ended up being, of course, paralyzed with that. How I didn't get killed is beyond me. And we had a machine gunner was just ahead of me. He got hit in the chest, and it took his shoulder blade right out his back. I just saw this huge patch of white on his back, which I thought was a bandage, but it turned out to be his left shoulder blade. We had our point man, kid by the name of Heads, who got shot right square in his belt buckle. And it drove that belt buckle right through him and out his back. I don't know how the guy lived. It was extraordinary that he lived. And we had about 4 other guys get hit. And then I got hit from a guy who was in a tree. He was about 30 feet up in a tree and about 30 feet away. And he nailed me as I was ducking behind a bush. And I took 2 rounds in the upper right thigh. The 3rd round hit me in the stomach and went out through my back. So we had wounded all up and down the line. And I was the second man to get medevaced out. First was the kid who got hit up front. Heads was the first out. Now, we were in triple canopy at that time, bud, so you couldn't land a chopper in there. And what they ended up doing was lowering an air-sea rescue hoist that you use for downed pilots. And And so they dropped this rescue hoist down, and our corpsmen and guys would put them into the hoist, and then they'd be pulled up through this triple canopy. So heads went out first, and then I followed, and that's when I mean, they were firing at us as, of course, as we were being pulled up, and that chopper ended up, I found out later, it took something like 17 or 18 hits while it was hovering over me, pulling me up through the triple canopy. And one of the door gunners got hit, and the pilot, it was the pilot or the co-pilot, I think it was the co-pilot who got hit also. And the thing was spewing oil and this orange sort of fluid coming in, sort of a brake fluid or whatever it was, rotor fluid, was coming down from the rotors all over the inside of this chopper, all over me, all over the door gunners, as we were flying back to Da Nang. And when this thing landed, I guess it had taken so much rotary damage and so much engine damage that it landed, but it couldn't it couldn't get up again. It had to taxi off the runway because it couldn't lift off again. It had just been shot up so badly. And that's when I went into 1st Med Battalion Hospital at Da Nang and had, pretty extensive surgery.